Namaste, dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10. Good morning to you. We broadcast live every day. We're James Alexander Estate Agents. And we broadcast to tell you what's going on locally here in Norbury, the most fantastic community in South London, that you must come and be a part of if you're thinking of getting a place that's commutable with a friendly population and a fantastic community. So how are you? I hope you're well. Today, the weather is kind of overcast. It feels like kind of the first day of the autumn, maybe. Hope I'm wrong. Could do with an Indian summer, but it just feels like that little bit cooler, and it looks like rain is on the way. But we can't complain. Had a fantastic weekend. A couple of things in the property news. We always bring you the latest property news here. If you want more of that, by the way, don't forget that every Friday we do release a new podcast. And thank you for all of those of you that have been supporting it. It's been getting on average 3 downloads every day. Which has been amazing. So thank you so much. And if you'd like us to cover a particular topic on that, do let me know, because we're always on the lookout for new topics that might be of interest to you as a buyer, seller, or investor, or indeed comment on this video. Always happy to hear from you. Drop me an email, ken@jamesalexander.com. 2 bits of news for you today. Mortgage top slicing. Big problem at the moment for a lot of borrowers is that because interest rates have gone up, they're looking to refinance some of their buy-to-let portfolio, because their rates have gone, often in many cases, from as low as 1% to as high as 9% on the standard variable of the lender. Now, there are options available to them at fixed rates, but they tend to be quite limited with a lender that you're with, and there's often better rates with other lenders. But there's a problem. Number one is, because the rents now are probably fixed for whatever the last time you signed a contract was, the rent versus the interest payment calculation no longer works, meaning that the lender's not prepared to lend you the same amount of money. Well, one lender's broken that mold now. It's called mortgage top slicing, and it's Birmingham Midshires. And what they've done, they said if your salary is above a certain level, then you can still get a mortgage on a property where the rent to income ratio isn't quite adequate. This is not financial advice, by the way. Seek independent financial advice as always, but it is a nice alternative for those that are feeling a prisoner with their current lender. There is a problem, and that is you need a certain minimum salary, and you either fit that or you don't. The average UK rental is now mad. It's £1,261 per calendar month for the average property rent in the UK. Here in London, of course, it's much, much higher, and you'd be lucky to get a 1-bedroom flat, believe it or not, for that kind of price now. It's absolutely crazy out there. More importantly, when you look at a lot of people are saying, well, that's for all very well, but we could buy a property for that kind of money. Well, the truth is now, with higher interest rates, you can't quite. Buying has now become more expensive than renting by a considerable margin. But you've got to remember that you buy not just for reasons of investment, but for reasons of family security, having a home that you don't have to move from when circumstances of the landlord change. And that's the big problem with the system at the moment. The government are trying to address this through the Renters Reform Act by saying, right, all tenancies are open-ended, but it won't really resolve the problem of a landlord being able to sell whenever they wish to sell by giving certain grounds or circumstances, which will be mandatory. In other words, he'll still be able to say, well, I'm selling, or a family member is moving in, or I'm personally moving in. That's regardless of whether they're selling today or renting your property out to you today or in the future. And the beauty of buying is not just in the price you pay or the value you get. It's in the fact that you get choices. And those choices are to move when you want to move, provided, of course, you have equity, which most people do, and also to know that your landlord can't suddenly turn around and say, here's a couple of months' notice, see ya. And that's a real problem for a lot of families that are kind of settled where they are, and especially now where landlords are finding that often the mortgage payments are far higher than their current rents. They're feeling a bit trapped. And also, as we've said many times before, vilified or demonized by many government statements and many in the press that think that the average landlord is some sort of evil despot or something, when in the reality, it's not the Kim Jong-uns or the Vladimir Putin of this world that are the landlords. I promise you, they're just normal people that took a risk in investment many years ago, and for many it paid off. And I think there is some jealousy and bitterness attached to that from many people. I always pose the question, well, the government are very anti-landlord, it seems, in some respects, but I wonder whether, if the landlords were losing money, whether they'd be supportive. And I think the answer is that wouldn't work for anybody. And that's where we are right now. And it's why the size of the rental sector is shrinking. And that's doing nobody any favors. On top of that, because the housing market is struggling more, builders are not building. And when builders aren't building, it's leading to a supply crisis. We've talked about 300,000 homes as a mandatory target in the past. They're not hitting anywhere near that. And of course, what they forget is that it's not up to them how many houses are built. It's up to builders. And when interest rates are high and confidence is shattered, then not so many people will want to buy. And therefore, the builders will know this and they'll land bank. They'll just keep that land to one side until market circumstances dictate differently. And they won't for a year or two. And in the meantime, that undersupply will continue to build. And this is one of the other factors when it comes to house prices that is often not considered, is the fact that if you've got no supply, then the available supply can actually have a reverse pressure and prices can go up on a lack of supply. And certainly we're finding at the moment that we're kind of at that pivotal point where you'd think, wouldn't you, that prices would be falling off a cliff, but actually they're not, because there's not the supply of property available for the people that are looking even now. Even though we've got far less buyers looking, we have far less properties to sell than we would have in what I'd consider a normal market. This week's a crucial week. Why? Well, it's get back to normal week, really, in terms of children are back at school, second week in, parents are bedding down, considering whether they're going to move this year. So we do find it's quite a critical time. And if you're thinking of selling, a really good time to get involved now, because by mid-October, the market starts to die off a little bit as people start to think about the end of the year, Christmas, and then think about moving perhaps next year in the springtime. So if you're considering a move and you're not sure what you should be doing, whether you should be selling or renting, we always like to chat that through. One of the great advantages of speaking to us here at JA is that we specialize in three things: auctions, buying and selling, and renting. And therefore, whichever you're doing, talk to us and we can give you perspective on each one and what might be best for your circumstances, because it differs depending on who you are and what you need out of this and when. So if you're wondering what you should do next and you're just not sure who to speak to, conversation is free. Give me a call, 0208 679 8601. Back tomorrow, same time, same place. And until then, look after yourselves. And if you can, your family and friends. Have a fantastic day, folks. Take care.